What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to the MMA Savvy podcast. It's your favorite host, Wally, and today we'll be discussing UFC 330, Makhachev versus Machado Garry, and then we'll break down the welterweight division and analyze what's next for Islam and the other top contenders.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting MMA Savvy!
Okay, here we go. UFC 330, Makhachev, Machado Garry, the welterweight title of the world. Before we get into the fight, I do have to admit, like the other pundits online, I was bashing the card. I was saying it wasn't a stacked card. It was top heavy. You had two title fights. Where's the ranked fighters? And I still stand behind that. But I gotta say, you know what? We were proven wrong. It was a great card. I watched it from the prelims to the top to the bottom. There were spectacular fights throughout the whole night. And you know what? I'm going to trust my boy Dana and Hunter and Shelby. I'm going to stop dissing them. Yes, I want the ranked guys, and I still stand behind the initial comments. But you know what? When Wally is wrong, I admit it, baby, and it was a great card. Okay, so here we go. Let's check it out. We're just going to talk about the main event, and then we're going to break down what is next for Islam, because we all know that he handled business, but it was close. Okay, so main event, Islam versus Machado Garry for the welterweight title. Islam, of course, the champ. Machado Garry, the #1 contender. I did pick Machado Garry. I did lose. I'm 7 behind Rich, the new leader in the Savvy rankings for picks for the year. Rich should have been here, but he was out boozing, celebrating his victory, and he's playing hooky. He took an unapproved PTO today, baby. Not clean. So let's break down what happened. Now, listen, I will leave saying Islam did not dominate. Garry definitely fought. He handled business. He was in the fight, but I knew round one was going to go down the way exactly that it did. Islam uses his wrestling, takes control. Garry fought a little bit, but really, once the boa constrictor gets on you, there's nothing you can do. So round one goes to Islam. Then Garry was in that second round. It was close. He was, keeping the distance, using his range. You get a couple leg kicks. Islam didn't look as aggressive. And then Islam, to give him to his credit, we're not going to bash him just for doing grappling this whole time, does a great combo for a punch to a high left kick that Garry did not see coming, and that changed the fight, because if Garry could have stifled him and stolen round two, we don't know what could have happened here, because it ended up being pretty close, at least on one of the judges' scorecards. But Islam with the big knockdown, then he grapples the rest of the round, and then next thing you know, it's 2-0. Then Garry has a great round 3, does just enough with his kicks, with his distance, a couple punches. He stifles the takedowns. Islam finally starts looking like he's tired, was texting Big Rich and Nico. Rich shocked that, Islam got this tired this early in the fight. But he's grappling a much bigger guy. He's trying to bring a guy down that's 6'3". It's not the same lightweights like Wally was saying here. So I'm not surprised Islam got tired. So it's 2-1 in the fourth round. Very pivotal. Machado Garry's up. He's landing. He landed a kick. He even had a punch that landed. I'm like, oh my God, it's turning. I could see another Strickland happening with Chimaev. I was losing my mind, baby. And then he goes for the takedown. This was the big mistake Garry made. If he had just kept defensively going against the wrestling, which seemed to be successful in round 3, but he tried a couple punches, and then Islam got the takedown, and then it was over, and it kind of nullified the damage, even though Nico will argue the pitter-patter shots from the clinch maybe stole Garry round 4. Two judges gave it to Islam, 1 to Garry. And so, you could have an argument it was 2-2, but I think it was Garry's mistake. He did a good job at defending the takedown all of round 3. He needed to do the same. And then round 5, just like Volkanovski, the first fight, which will give Nico nightmares for the next 10 years, baby. Garry, looked good again. He looked good again. He was up, and then Islam gets the takedown. He gets his back, and then it's all but over because he was already up 3-1. And, most of the judges gave it to him 49-46. Now, here's the one thing I will say, though, and Rich will argue with me. I did think Garry had a very valiant effort. It was almost like the Sandhagen-Merab feeling. Well, yes, he was getting taken down, but he was getting up better than anybody has ever gotten up against him because JDM couldn't do anything. And at least Garry was getting up. He fought valiantly, and he was in those fights. If he could have just been a little bit more aggressive, he might have stolen round 4 to at least have made it 2-2. So at least he was in the fight. I was very impressed with his grit, his tenacity, his durability, but he just wasn't, this is the issue, is that you can't be that active and you can't really throw the way you normally want to because you're so worried about the takedown. And that's why Khabib and Islam and Umar and hopefully, not hopefully, but Usman maybe later, although he strikes more, but that's how they win because even when they're on the feet, the other guy's so scared to throw. So Islam, he deserved it in my eyes, 3-2, 4-1, probably on my scorecard. I thought the 49-46 was legit. The one thing I will say, though, is, and I don't want to start agreeing with the Riches and the Nikos, but I wasn't that impressed by the victory. Not that I'm saying that I was that impressed by Garry, but I don't leave this thing thinking that Makhachev dominated as much as he normally does. He kind of squeaked the victory. Yes, he, got 4 and got 5, but it wasn't in a very dominating fashion. He kind of just held position. He was almost like doing it like, man, I'm going to lose this fight. I got to go to the well. And he did it, and I'm an American wrestler guy. And back in the day when KOTOR did this, I wasn't complaining to Big Tim Sylvia. I was losing my mind. So you can't now complain about the Dagestanis and their style. If they have an angle, they got to use it, baby. And it's on Garry to be able to stop the takedown. I don't want people to keep blaming them and say, all they do is wrestle and blah, blah, blah. So still impressive. He's beating welterweights now, so we don't want to take anything away from him. But I'm not leaving now thinking, oh my God, I'm dying to see what's next for Islam, right? I'm like, okay, but I'm not like, oh my God, counting down the minutes till the next fight. Because I thought, I don't know, I wouldn't say cheap victory, but it wasn't very dynamic. I'm not left, ultra impressed, even though he did in the record books break Anderson Silva's record. The one thing I got to say, and Richie Boy Nico, what are your thoughts here is, and the fans out there, John Jones kind of has the record too, but he had 1 disqualification against DC. So what, he's not in the running for the 17 straight. I thought that was a little bit weird. I had to go back and look because he won way more than that in a row. But I guess there was the DQ against DC and making him not eligible for that run. So I don't know if that, maybe we need to discuss that next time. Either way, Garry's going to go back to the drawing board. He's only 28 years old. Like he said at the end, now he's got 10 more years. And if Islam retires in 2, he's going to be right in the running because he's going to beat Prates, Richie boy, and he might beat Morales, and he could still be a future champion. You're going to have to deal with the future later on because even though Islam got to him, I don't think those guys get to him. So if Islam's only fights another couple years, Garry's still going to be in the running. He's only be 30 years old. So he's there. And I liked how he sounded in the octagon. Everybody's hating Garry. Screw them. He sounded like a great guy. I don't care about all this nonsense that he's doing extracurricular with the wife, whatever. Okay. But the big story now is, what does Islam do next? And how does the welterweight division shake out? All right. So let's take a look here. This is what we do here at Savvy. So make sure to like the video, hit subscribe, and always stay for a divisional analysis because no one goes as deep as we do at MMA Savvy. So now you got Islam, of course, at the top of the heap. And now you got Machado Garry. He's going to fall down a little bit, right? Now, in Islam's defense, he is, and I was, going to bash him and say, oh, he's not going to fight for 8 months, for 10 months is normal nonsense. But he's claiming he's older and he does want to fight. He wants to be more active. Ramadan, we know, is in March. So he's got to fight by February. So he actually came out in the press conference. And yes, they say this a lot. So Wally will believe it when I see it, but he's saying he wants to fight by the end of the year or by January. So that's not too terrible. Most likely it's Prates because he's been more active. He just starts JDM, looks so insanely crazy. Besides Hoofy, his ex-training partner, he's got to be one of the scariest strikers in the world. Now the prayer has kind of fallen off a little bit. Okay, so most likely Islam, Prates. My one worry is, though, does Islam just wrestle him the whole time, Richie boy? I mean, can Prates, I know Prates got wrestled a little bit by Edwards, and then the second round, boom. So he's going to be much more dangerous when they're on the feet, unlike Garry, who played possum a lot more and was just kind of like waiting for the big counter punch. But will that change when Prates is so worried about the takedown? I don't know if I see anything different there, but it still is very exciting because he's so dangerous that Islam is going to really have to wrestle or he's in big trouble. Now, if that happens, I think it's the rumor mill is saying Morales, JDM later this year. So at least you get something rolling there. Although JDM looked terrible against Prates. I don't see him even being competitive anymore. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being tough on him because he just had to deal with Islam and Prates, the best wrestler in the world, maybe the best striker in the world, back to back. But it's like he was one of the best boxers you've seen in a while. And I just wonder if, did he just fall off? So if they throw him Morales, he might get work. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hear rumors that might even be Salt Lake City. I like the fight. So I think things are working out. Then you get Bonfim Brady, just booked for November. I love the fight. Bonfim, who wasn't that impressive in the beginning of his run. Now he looked incredible against Muhammad. And then you got Brady, who, reset himself against Buckley. I love the fight. Let's see. I might have to go for my boy Brady there, but that's very close. Now you see Muhammad's completely fallen from grace. Edwards has lost 3 straight. Usman's wasting his time up at middleweight, Richie boy. He's probably going to ruin his career when he might have had one last chance against one of these guys. He could have had maybe a better chance to at least wrestle one of these top 5 contenders. So I don't think he's coming back down. And then, of course, I said Buckley is already Buckley now against Malat. And I love that fight, too, because Buckley needs a win. And Malat looks like my boy from Canada, from the north, baby. Propa. Mike Malat, I love him. And I love that Buckley fight. That's October. Now, the other key elements here to this division, you got Yaroslav Amazov, who's coming in looking like a killer that might have the grappling and the size to deal with an Islam. But I wonder if by the time Amazov gets to him, is Islam even fighting anymore? Because I feel like a couple years might even go by unless Amazov makes this insane running, murks 2 more people in the next 6 months. Then you got Medic, who's also looking insane, 4 straight knockout wins. Page dilly-dallying against Razubiev at middleweight, and D-Rod did not look good, obviously, in that loss recently. So I do got to say, though, this is a top 3 division. It's very hot with especially if Islam stays active, fights Prates. You got Morales, JDM in the wings. You got Bonfim Brady. Then you got a little dead weight in the middle, but then you got Buckley versus Malat, and then Amazov and Medic, and a lot of key guys there. And yes, if Edwards or Muhammad, maybe Usman come down, there'll be players, but I don't see them touching gold again. So it's really a lot of these young gun killers and some of the old dead weight that sort of got to go. But it's definitely a top 3, maybe even one of the better divisions in the world. Screw Richie and his flyweight. It's not even close to lightweight or middleweight or welterweight, but it's in the top 4, top 5. I'll give it to you, baby. There's some juice there. All right, that was your divisional analysis. We'll see what happens, and I hope you guys love these breakdowns. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to the MMA Savvy podcast, the world's top place for MMA content. If you love these weekly episodes, make sure to hit subscribe. And if you're a real MMA enthusiast, check out the old MMA Savvy videos on our page. You might see some UFC legends pop up, just as Nick Diaz, Ronda Rousey, and John Jones. The old channel has been revived, and we couldn't be more excited. So please subscribe, follow, comment, like, share, and blast on all of our social channels. We're blasting hard on the talk, we're heavy on the gram, and we're going crazy on the tube. That's at MMA Savvy and at Richie Boy MMA. And make sure to comment and challenge our takes if you have disagreements. We love the comments and interactions with the fans. So with that, stay savvy, fight fans.